Hi, my name is David Walker and welcome to Lake Barkley. Today we're going to break it down for you, kind of give you some tips and tactics on what to do and when to do it, no matter what time of year you're coming here. So big body of water, so let's give it a look. So my first introduction to Lake Barkley came in the mid 90s. I heard so much about Barkley. Oh, you like to flip, you need to go over there and try it. And boy, were they right. Now Barkley and Kentucky are nearly in my back door and great place to have nearby. Barkley's a really big reservoir, 58,000 surface acres. Now it's on the Cumberland River. This lake runs south to north. There's very few other places in the world that actually do that. And starting at the north end there where the dam is, from there down to around Lake Barkley Resort, that area is probably the most broad part of the lake. Has a lot of drops and shoals and bars and things like that. Once you get further south than that, below the bridge down to Dover, there's a lot of bigger backwater, large bays and pockets all down through that section of the lake. From there, further south, all the way down to Clarksville, Tennessee, much more of a river type style where there's not much backwater. That's much more of just straight river fishing from that point on. So anytime you hear the name Lake Barkley, you're going to be familiar with the name Kentucky Lake and then LBL. That's land between the lakes, which is literally the stretch of land that goes between the two lakes as they run parallel to each other. Now at the top end of that, on the north end, there's a canal that connects the two lakes. So it's easy to get from one to the other. There's no lock in there, but that LBL is famous and it's well known by a lot of hunters and fishermen. Barkley has a couple things that Kentucky Lake is not really known for. One is watercolor. Cumberland River tends to have a lot more stain to it, dirtier water. And the second thing is shallow water cover. There's plentiful amounts of shallow water cover in Lake Barkley. Buckbrush is probably my number one thing I'm looking for, especially when the lake's at its higher levels. Now, when the bushes aren't in the water, there's still plenty of log cover around here, lots of crappie stake beds, docks, marinas, things like that. So visible shallow cover is something that's easy to find no matter what the season. So Barkley has got largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass. Largemouth being the most prevalent. They really thrive in that shallow, dirtier water conditions. Fertile water produces a lot of those bait fish. So we've got a lot of threadfin shad, we've got the bigger gizzard shad. It also has what we call yellow bass. They look like a white bass, but they don't get near as big. Bluegills, all that stuff that you associate with what a bass will eat, Barkley's got a lot of that. Now, when it comes to coming here and staying, the middle part of the lake is what I would consider around Lake Barkley State Resort Park. Now, this is a great place to stay. Got a big marina, cabins, camping, you name it. The lodge has all the facilities. Further north you go, around the Catawba area, that's another real popular area to stay, and that's on the upper end near the dam area. If you go further south, around the Dover area, the amount of population through that area gets much lower, but there's still great places to stay. Airbnbs, bed and breakfast, things like that. If you keep going way south, further south, go all the way down around Clarksville, Tennessee, you're fishing that river part of it, but it's a great place. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of places to stay. Much bigger town in that area. So when it comes to access, there's so many of them. Probably my favorite place has always been at the Lake Barkley State Resort Park. Got great access year-round. You can always put in there, and it kind of puts me in the middle part of the lake. If you go further north, there's plenty of marinas up there around Catawba, Grand Rivers, all the way up around Turtle Bay. You're going to find a ramp no matter if it's a primitive one or a big marina type, whatever fits your needs. All right, so let's break down the lake according to the time of year. So let's start with the spring. Now, one of my favorite places in the spring of the year is some of these big tributaries on Lake Barkley. See how the red and then the yellows, and then we get to the greens, the green being the deeper water. I'm gonna look for these areas like this where you start seeing this green come in close proximity with the red areas. Things like this right here. Those are gonna be key areas early in the spring, the very start of it. Places I'm going to look for because these fish are going to use this as a travel route to take themselves further back into these creeks because that's the direction that they're going. So So like in many of these bays, the very back end of them, they really flatten out. That's typical for the Barkley Lake area. And in those flat areas is where the bushes are growing, those buckbrush, willow bushes, things like that. But at this time of the year, when it's still at winter pool, they don't have water in them yet. But as that water starts to rise with the springtime, the temperatures are rising and we start getting those spring rains, and then the lake starts coming up with that as well. So those fish know what's coming, and they're going to be hanging around near these areas because that water's warming up, and this water back in here is going to warm up first. So following that transition back through there, looking for those intersections of where the deeper water comes close to that shallow water is always a key area for me. All right, so late winter, what we're gonna call early spring. The water's just starting to warm up a little bit, starting to get a few warm days, still got cold nights and all. And the fish are gonna start moving back into these areas. The flat bays like this, they warm up the fastest. When that sun shines on that and that shallow bottom like that, these are the areas that warm up first. Plus we've got all that cover in the back there that is gonna be what the fish are gonna be getting into once we get the water there. This time of year, search baits are really key for me. Love using, say, a chatterbait, something like that. This here is a Z-Man jackhammer. Red early spring works no matter where you're gonna go. Another great search bait is a square bill. These little square bill crankbaits, they come through the cover really well. This one here, now this is just it's an old school Lucky Craft 1.5. This is one of the older versions of a square bill. You're not fishing a lot of heavy cover. You're gonna be fishing some rocks, some laydowns, maybe some of the crappie, the stake beds. It's really common. And for those, I'm gonna use good old black and blue jig. Now I've been using a black and blue jig since, I don't know, as long as I can remember. Barkley, especially, that darker color like that works really well. This is a cross-eyes flipping jig. This is a little heavier version. It's 5/8 flap and crawl trailer on the back. This is on a flipping stick. And then I got my other rods paired up on a chatterbait rod. And my crankbait rod here is not your traditional crankbait rod because it's a square bill. It's a little stiffer than what you normally use, and I'm gonna use a little bit heavier line. Like on the light end, I'm gonna use maybe 16, 18-pound test on my square bill crankbait. So these are the lures I'm gonna use to kind of search my way back through these places, looking for those fish that are just starting to get up there. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look at that fish right there. Once the water level gets up to summer pool and it's still springtime, that to me is my favorite time to be here. All these big bays that you see down along the river. So when the water's at full pool, summer pool, and the fish are spawning back in these areas, this is all gonna be buckbrush back in here. And where these little feeder arms are in, you're gonna have willow trees lining that area as well. So you're gonna have buckbrush from there all the way back through there. And this is a big area. There's gonna be just thousands of bushes back in these places for you to flip and pitch into. These things are key areas. They've warmed up, the water's got up into those bushes. There's a lot of cover there. These are really high target areas for a month or more when you come here onto Lake Barkley in the springtime. All right, so now we're in the spawning phase of it. The lake is high. We're starting to fish all these pockets now in these big bays, especially when the little drains come out. As you can see back here, we've got willow trees, we've got buckbrush, we've got the good old yellow flowers. Those will all grow up and they create all that shallow cover in the back end of those things. And those fish are spawning back in there. And to start with, still, the black and blue jig, this is one of my favorite deals, especially when those fish first get on those beds or they're first setting up in that area. Even though the water's deep, it's pretty dingy, you're not gonna be able to see those fish. Here, you gotta know which kind of bushes. It'll take some time to figure out which bush is the one that they set up on the most. But black and blue jig and a heavy weight, because you got to get through all that down to the bottom of the bush.
Oh, man.
Now, once that spawn gets going and the water starts warming up and you start getting some bites that are biting at the jig or they're coming off, you're just missing a little bit, that's when I'm going to start going with these creature style baits. This one here is another Z-Man bait. It's called a gremlin, something that's got a little movement to it. It's got a lot of bulk to it. It's the same setup, flip and stick, 20-pound test. I'm going to use maybe a 3/8 or a 7/16 weight because I want it to get down into that. Many times these bushes will have leaves on them at that point. They've already grown the leaves and then the water comes up around them. But this is going to work wonders for you. And then a cult favorite right here, spinner bait. Comes with that wood cover. You can throw it way back into those places. And fish just really love a spinner bait, especially in a watercolor that we have on Barkley. So this one here is a Z-Man. It's a sling blade spinner bait. Now I typically use a little bit heavier one, like a 1/2 ounce one. 3/8 is fine, but it kind of stays up a little bit too high. I want something that's that will get down in around that fish better. Something with a little bit of chartreuse in it, probably a gold blade up front. You can use double willow leaf or a single Colorado works many times too, but that's probably my favorite time of year is when those fish are on those bushes and that water's up high in them. So now later in the spring, before you get to that summer pattern, we have what's called post-spawn. In many areas that can be kind of a tough time to fish, but on river systems like this, where you've got a lot of bars and shallow bars in particular, it can be a great time to fish. So the fish that were spawning back in this area here, now they're going to start moving back out because the water is warmed up, they're done spawning, and they're going to start to group up in little places exactly like these right here. There's so many of these, so many of the bays and pockets in Barkley has these shallow bars that stick out into the bay, and those are all going to be really perfect areas for fish to gang up. This one is really good because you can see there's an old road bed on there. So that means you're going to have a guarantee there's going to be a hard spot there that those fish are going to relate to before they end up heading back out towards the main river when the flow of the current is. All these little bars that you see in these places, there's many of them. Those are key areas to fish that time of year. So now on the lake, like late spring, we're talking about early summer, post-spawn, maybe you could call it that as well. What happens here is a lot of the fish are coming out of those pockets. They've been back in those shallow water areas, and now they're starting to move out. I'm gonna start moving that transition to where they're gonna be in the summertime. This is a great time of year to really find schools of fish. They'll be piled up on these little secondary points that are back in the areas. Basically, the first steep point that out in front of the spawning areas is going to be a great place to look, where those road beds are, or if it's just as long as it's a point that sticks out into the pocket before they're going to head out into the lake. And the baits that I like to use for that is, number one is a crankbait. Something that's going to go in that 10, 12-foot range is really going to do a good job. Barkley is really known for the shallow water fishing, and this continues even when those fish start getting in that post-spawn deal. I like to use a crankbait, and then another thing I really like to use is a football jig and a Carolina rig. I'm using this as a Z-Man, shaking my head. It's just a straight tail worm. This is something that can really get a lot of bites, especially after I've already been through that spot with the crankbait. The other thing is determining what the bottom composition is down there. You can feel that road bed, or you feel those little mussels and what have you. But this is the time of year to catch groups of fish, and using those baits like that are really going to help you out. All right, so now we're getting into the summer part of fishing. And the good thing about fishing on Cumberland River is there's flow. And you can look it on the app. They have a TVA app, something great to have, and it's going to show you how much they're going to generate. During the summer, they generate quite a bit of water, electricity. It's a hydroelectric dam, so they're going to be generating water. And those fish know that. And fish are moving out of these creeks and they're heading out here to what we call the main river ledges and drops. This can be a time of year where it'd be really productive. Water level is going to stay pretty much the same through the summer, but there's going to be a lot of flow depending on how they're generating. And the places to look for, as you can see, there's many of them out there along there where that main river channel comes in contact with what we call one of these drops or the bars, however you want to phrase it. But these are the kind of areas you want to look for, those high spots where that water current's going to come up and over that spot, and those fish really tend to congregate on the front end of these places, especially when that water is flowing. There's so many of them out there. And what's key about many of these places is the bottom composition. If you're paying attention, you can actually feel that harder bottom. But mussels, freshwater mussels, is really a key thing to look for here. Where those mussels are, they create a hard bottom for you because they grow in areas, and there'll be many together, big stretches. You can literally see them with your side scan sonar, or you can feel it with your lure, whichever one. You'll see what I'm talking about. But mussels are key when it comes to looking for good places to fish. Idle down these edges and you'll really look for those hard spots or look for schools of fish that are set up on these areas, especially where that water flow is coming straight into them. Okay, so on Barkley now, when we get to the summertime, we start thinking about current. Current is key, and getting out on the main river where that current flow is really going to be important. Now, once you find an area like that, summertime and a football jig go hand in hand. This is a great way to get some bites, and big bites as well. Those big fish love a football jig. Pulling it across those mussels, you can feel that hard bottom down there. And you're not, like I said, most of the time you're not fishing particularly deep. Like a lot of those mussel bars may be in 5 to 10 foot of water at the most. So most of the time, this right here, I use a 3/4 or 1 ounce jig. This makes it easy, keeps it on the bottom. The other good thing is the old Carolina rig. We talked about it, early on. This thing is going to work for you throughout the summer. Same idea, the same technique applies. Cast it out, let it hit the bottom, and just pull it. You want to pull it along the bottom. But when the water gets hot and these people start night fishing, around here night fishing is popular, but if you're out here, you're fishing in the day and it's summertime, a big worm, and a plum colored worm, this is one of probably my favorite techniques to fish when it comes to summertime. And I'm gonna fish this on a Texas rig. Now, I use about a 3/8 ounce, sometimes a 1/2 ounce sinker, fishing that with a Texas rig, and I guarantee you're gonna get some results. All right, so now when you're summer fishing like this is gonna continue on for quite a while. Then we start getting in late summer, start thinking about fall, and the water starts cooling off, start getting some cool nights, water levels start to drop. And one of the things that'll happen is you're gonna see some of these big bays and pockets, shad. That's gonna be the key thing to look for that time of year. These bays and pockets are gonna start filling up with shad. Fish know this, they're gonna start moving back there in with it. Now the water's level is going to be dropping as well, so there's not going to be near as much cover. The stake beds, brush piles, lay downs, what few things are back there are going to be key high percentage areas to get a bite. Now the places that usually end up having shad in them tend to start with the ones that are very connected right to the main river channel. As the fall wears on, these pockets over in here that are a little bit further away from the main river channel, many times those are gonna start having a lot of shad in them as well. And these banks, especially the ones that have a little bit steeper side to them like that, are gonna be key places where there's gonna be brush piles and or lay downs. So what limited cover there is, usually is gonna be a high percentage area to catch some fish. So on Lake Barkley in the fall of the year, when the water level starts to drop, gets down there, start approaching that winter pool area, shad is a key. Going into these pockets and looking for bait fish, knowing that shad being a primary forage, I'm gonna stick with those shad type colors, whites, a little bit of chartreuse, something along those lines. Even with my spinner baits, with my top waters, with my crankbaits, all gonna have that look. The chatterbait right here, this is an ideal bait because you can cover a lot of water with it. Now that the water's down, there's not a lot of wood cover in the water. There's some rocks. Around docks is ideal time to be throwing a chatterbait around those docks. Another thing that works well around them is a top water. Now I can go down the banks, so those really flat banks, what have you, but around docks or around if there's an isolated target, a lay down or something like that, I love to throw a walking bait, top water around those things. Their visibility is much less, and I like a bait that's making more of a racket. And to top it off, this one right here, a lipless bait. Now these things do such a good job this time of year because like I said, there's not a lot of cover in the water. Many places just mud banks. And you can throw it super shallow, it comes through it well, makes a lot of noise, fish hear it coming, stands out in a crowd of that bait fisher out there. But keeping it focused on the shad and just looking for those areas that had a lot of shad in them. Close to the summer haunts, they're starting to move into those. Usually those pockets that are close to that river channel are gonna be the first ones. But as the water starts to cool off and it gets lower, those shad just keep coming back into those pockets.
Perfect. I mean, he wanted that.
Now when you come in here and you start thinking about wintertime fishing. Now wintertime can mean a couple things. One is, you can fish here in the wintertime ideally because the lake is not going to freeze over on you. So you can come here and actually do some winter fishing. These banks where you have the channel comes right close to them is especially good banks because you want that vertical cover. And another thing the vertical banks will do is there's going to be a lot of rock on these. So these areas right through here is going to be rocky. Even out here in front of the marinas, this is all going to be riprap, and rock can be great when it comes to fishing in the wintertime. Look for those steep banks, places that hold some water where you're still in deep water, but you can really reach the bank in an easy cast. All right, so in the wintertime, what I'm going to start focusing on is those really steep banks, bluff banks, channel swings, whatever you might want to call it. But the easiest way to find those is not just only on your map, but if you just look at the features on the bank. When you see those big rocks or solid rock wall, that's going to tell you that that channel swings right in next to that bank, and those are going to be really key areas. Now the baits I use from those key areas is, one right off the bat is a jerk bait. Jerk baits do great because you're actually fishing for some suspended fish out in front of that wall. Many times that's where they'll be. Now, if conditions change, maybe you get a little bit of wind, maybe it's a warmer day, whatever it might be, then I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to start fishing for those fish that are near the bank, and I'm going to start using a little crankbait. Little crankbaits in wintertime to me is an ideal situation. I can cover a lot of water with them, moving down that bank, just reeling it along. Not a lot of cover there. There might be a lay-in log or something like that, but most of the time you're just ricocheting them off the rocks. And another great option this time of year is, especially for those suspended fish, is an Alabama rig. Imitating that bait ball that's swimming up and down along those ledges is a great way to catch a lot of fish as well. Okay, so wrap it up here. Big lake, lots of opportunities, and especially for you guys that love to shallow water fish, you got to come here and give it a try. Year round, there's something to do here for everybody.